I, Rodrigo Roa Duterte,
Rodrigo Roa Duterte started his presidency like a wildfire. The talk-talking 71-year-old former mayor of Davao City promise of real change resonated with the Filipino electorate, resulting in a landslide victory over his rivals in the May 2016 elections. Barely 3 months into his 6-year term, Duterte's demeanor and off-the-cuff pronouncements and a vicious war against illegal drugs have caught the attention, sometimes censure, of allies like the United States and international organizations, particularly the United Nations. In an interview with the Daily Manila Shimbun, Casiple shares his thoughts on the first 100 days of the Duterte presidency and the challenges that lie ahead for his administration.
Now the problem actually is that up to now, I think he is still grappling with the casting off his mayor culture and trying to tackle a presidential one. I would still say that he is still on that learning curve. It would take more than 100 days. But certainly, he started like a wildfire. He really meant the change is coming, and he launched an anti-drug campaign with major results by today. What I mean is that we had a record number of pushers and users who have come out in the open, more than 107,000, I think. There were a lot also were arrested, and as critics say, a lot more people were killed. We had major initiatives in the peace process front, with basically very optimistic on the permanent closure to two major conflicts for the past several decades, the one with the Communist Party and the other with the Moro Rebellion. We have also started on the road to major social reforms. In the environment side, particularly mining and on land reform, on contractualization and labor. The one thing that did not change, and this is an emphasis I think he made during his first week, was in the economic policy. It was Secretary Dominguez who presented the 10-point economic plan, which basically says those that have been the reasons for the growth of the domestic products will still be there. So 100 days seems like almost equivalent to maybe 3 years for other administrations. There were so many changes, whether for good or bad, depending on the critic. But certainly with President Duterte, there can be no turning back. I think his administration will go down as a transition presidency. Towards what? We don't know. We don't know yet.
On pronouncements made by President Duterte on making alliances with China and Russia, Casiple pointed out that pursuing an independent foreign policy is a constitutional mandate.
What changed actually, I would rather describe it as normalization, the renormalization of relations with China. The decoupling is basically between our attitude and policy to China. It's not dependent on what the U.S. and our relations will be, if the U.S. accepts that.
Asked how this would affect the Philippine relations with Japan, Casiple said,
In fact, Japan was a rare country in that Laos conference where the Philippine president had good conversations. And I think Japan and the Duterte government's relationship will not in any way be affected. In fact, it would grow stronger if you follow the logic of independent foreign policy.
On the campaign against illegal drugs, which Duterte vowed to crush in 3 to 6 months, Casiple said the president may have created the atmosphere or climate for the killing spree. But he pointed out that there is no qualitative difference between the killings now and before the anti-drug campaign.
But, and this is the big but, the difference is that you have a president who launched a campaign and included that as a particular part of the protocol when he called upon the police to not hesitate in killing. But he made sure that he has his premises right, meaning due process, rule of law, human rights has been part of the literature actually. The problem actually with this particular campaign is they have quotas. And you know what happens when there is a quota.
Casiple, however, says he does not think there is a policy, stated or unstated, to undertake extrajudicial killings. He also does not see the outrage over the rising death toll to spark street protests.
I would assume that in time, but not on an immediate time frame. Because the reports we got from the community level, grassroots, is that most people are supporting it.
He also said that Duterte is capable of handling the dynamics between the left and the right in his cabinet.
But President Duterte is known to handle that kind of dynamics in Davao. And if he made good, there's a possibility he will handle it well.
Casiple said he expects the opposition to Duterte's agenda, particularly the move to federalism, to come from the political elite.
There are those who are already calling for struggle against him. That's usually coming from the right because it's the left that actually is the new element in cabinet. But I think he will handle that, unless of course there are powerful forces that would fan the flames. And this looking at the U.S. Fairly or unfairly as the source of any such moves.
Casiple said Duterte's rise or fall will be determined by success in raising the quality of life of the people.
Inclusive growth actually was the campaign promise of all the candidates. And his way of thinking about it was the one that people accepted. So he will rise or fall on the question of inclusive growth. This was also the problem of the Aquino administration, the question of expectations.